Naam Sankirtan ki, Bhakti Devi ki, Sisi Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath, Sham Kunda Radha Kunda Kiri Govardhan ki, Shri Vrindavan Dham ki Jai. Shrimati Purnamasi Bhagavati Yogamaya ki, Shri Devi ki, Shrimati Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki Jai. Gopi Sharma Devi ki Jai. Jagannath Baladevi Subhadra Devi Surasan Chakra Purushottam Dham Tota Gopinath ki Jai. Braj Dham ki Nrsimha Bhagavan ki Bhakta Pravar Prahlad Maharaj ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Samagata Bhakta Vrinda ki Shri Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jataha Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Namo mahabhadanyaya Krishna prema pradayate Krishnaya Krishna chaitanya namane Gaura tishe namaha. Nityanandam namastubhyam premananda pradayane Kalo kalmashanashaya janavapataye namaha. He Krishna karuna sindho dinabandho jagatpate Gopesha gopika kanta radhakanta namostute Tapta kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Brindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Brindai Tulsi Debai Priyai Keshavasyacha Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavachai Namo Namah. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I'm offering my unlimited Dandavat pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Diksha and Siksha Gurudevs Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Astatarashata Sri Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Asto Tarasata Sri Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj and Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Asto Tarasata Sri Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. My unlimited Dandavat pranams to the lotus feet of all of my Sri Sri Rupa Nuga Guru Varga and my Siksha Guru Varga, and my Dandavat pranams to the lotus feet of all the Vaishnavas and all the Vaishnavis. So, yesterday we discussed to some extent, a little bit of Gaur Tattva and how Gaur is Radha and Krishna combined. So today, I'm going to read from our Shlokamrita book various verses which are very nicely put together to form the chapter number 23 in the book called Radha Tattva. Now the subtitle of this chapter is Shri Radhika is our be-all and end-all. So now the first verse that's being quoted, I quoted yesterday also. And that verse is the 5th verse of chapter 1 of Adi Leela, Chaitanya Charitamrita. Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikritir Allah Dini Shaktir Asmad Ekatmana Vapibuvi Purabe Deha Vedam Gutoto Chaitanyakyam Prakatam Aduna Tadvayam Chaikyam Aptam Radha Bhava Dyuti Suvalitam Nomi Krishna Swarupam. And this verse is written by Sri Swarup Damodar Goswami, but it is being quoted, as many other verses also are being quoted by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami as the basis of Chaitanya Charitamrita. So the translation of this verse, I mentioned yesterday how Prabhupada would quote the first words of the first line, Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikritir Allah Dini Shakti Rasmad. So the meaning of this is that Srimati Radhika is a transcendental manifestation of the most condensed form of love for Sri Krishna. Because it says Pranaya Vikritir. And Pranaya means, I'll look at the adjectives here, how they translate it. Pranaya is translated as love of God. Vikriti means the special transformation, increasing unlimitedly up to Madanakya Mahabhav. So this is Srimati Radharani. She is a transcendental manifestation of the most condensed form of love for Sri Krishna. She is the personification of his internal pleasure-giving potency. Although Radha and Krishna are one in their identity, they separated themselves eternally. They're one, but they separated themselves eternally. And now these two transcendental identities have again united in the form of Sri Krishna Chaitanya. I bow down to him who has manifested himself with the sentiment and complexion of Srimati Radharani, although he is Krishna himself. So yesterday you asked a question. Yes, you remember? And I don't know if that question was answered or not, but I thought about that also. Because, say your question again on the mic.
Well, you were explaining that Mahaprabhu had an inner purpose. Well, actually, Krishna had an inner purpose, and that was to experience the glory of Radha's love, the beauty she experiences, and the bliss that she experiences. And that internal purpose, I questioned, could it not have been served, if that was the sole purpose, just in taking a female form? My question really was that because there's other purposes for his descent, was that just his mercy, Krishna's mercy to come in a male form so that there'd be access or hope or facility or following that everyone could aspire for that same kind of love, or at least to taste something in following.
Okay, so what prompted your question? Why did you think about a female form, that Krishna should have to come in a female form in order to experience this? Because you were saying it would have been easier or something like that. Right?
But the question, at least some of the ways you answered that question was that it would have been heartbreaking that what Radha had to go through is something that isn't really depicted. I mean, it is depicted, but Mahaprabhu doing it in a male form is more bearable, maybe, to see or have witnessed by others. I don't know. It was a question just about tasting. If this was his if this was his sole intent, then why not experience it fully? And why take a male form and then just experience it internally? That if the intent was just to experience what Radha is, certainly Krishna has the ability to experience directly what his devotees do, if he so chooses. That's all. So it was just a question. It was just something that came to mind. Why?
Well, I thought a little bit more about that. So we know that in Goloka Vrindavan there are two sections, right? There are two sections of the internal whorl of the lotus flower of Goloka Vrindavan. That internal whorl of that lotus flower is where Radha and Krishna's pastimes take place eternally, and it is Braj. That is Braj. But there's another section. There are two halves. And what is that other section? Shvetadvip, where what is taking place?
Sankirtan.
Yeah. In what form?
But Mahaprabhu and his associate.
Yes. Krishna has taken Srimati Radhika's golden color. And eternally, this is not a temporary pastime, this is eternal. So, as I said yesterday, the male, and not only that, but also all of the gopis and so forth, they're also taking male forms eternally there. Srimati Radharani is eternally Gadadhar in that section. So the thing is that we shouldn't try to understand through like a material limited form of female. Because obviously the very fact that Krishna himself came again or manifested his eternal form there and is manifesting eternally, that's the meaning of this verse, Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikritir, is that it's going on eternally. And just as Krishna's pastimes are going on eternally, but he manifests them in the material universes, so similarly, Krishna's form as the Gauranga, the golden Lord who is overwhelmed and always tasting divine through Nam Sankirtan. So, Srila Gurudev said, how and why is it that Braj and Navadvip Dham are identical abodes, being also mentioned by Narottam Das Thakur, that both Navadvip Dham and Vrindavan Dham are identical abodes. Gurudev differentiated that Jagannath Puri does not fit into those two categories. Some persons say Jagannath Puri is Vrindavan, but no, we know through Mahaprabhu's pastimes in Puri and through the Rath Yatra pastimes and so forth, that Mahaprabhu is experiencing internally Vrindavan and as Radharani, bringing Krishna back to Vrindavan. Huh?
Gundicha?
Well, Gundicha is representing Vrindavan, and in this great dramatic performance of the Rath Yatra, the main thing is the internal moods, because this is reflecting what the gopis and Srimati Radhika are experiencing in Kurukshetra. So this is the outward manifestation of it in Nilachaladam, where Krishna is the king in the temple there, like Krishna in Dwarka, right? So, but the Rath Yatra festival is when the Brijvasis come to Samanta Panchaka for the solar eclipse, and there they meet. So that very intense meeting, you can't get more intense than that, when Krishna has not seen them for all these years, and now they meet. And Srimati Radhika's mood, that last verse of the Sikshastakam, Srila Sridhar Maharaj says, is Srimati Radhika's mood at Kurukshetra. That, because she saw that Krishna was shy, and she did not like to see that. And she told, no, you are my Pramanath. You have every right. It is I who am at fault. Radharani is telling me that I did not die. You see? So, so within this world, in the Bon Leela of Mahaprabhu, he's always in Vrindavan, because Navadvip is not different than Vrindavan. And then, in his pastimes of Harinam Sankirtan, he's experiencing Srimati Radhika's experiencing and tasting all these pastimes as Sachinandana Gaura Hari in Vrindavan. And he is like in the kirtans in Srivas Thakur's house. This is like rasa dance. In the mood of Radharani, he is tasting the happiness that she experienced in the rasa dance with Krishna. So, what Gurudev explained is that the three desires which Lord Chaitanya, which Krishna wanted to fulfill as Lord Chaitanya, they were completely fulfilled in Navadvip Dham, and that is all internal. But the speciality, Srila Sridhar Maharaj says, is also for the jivas. His sannyas is especially his mercy for the jivas. Then he's teaching. First he's teaching Nam Sankirtan, and then he himself is diving deeper and deeper and deeper in the moods of separation. Right from the very moment that he meets Ishwara Puri, now his separation mood begins in Gaya. Right? His internal moods, they come out, and then when he comes back to Navadvip, all the Navadvip Vasis are, that's all they're talking about. Did you see what Nimai Pandit, how he's now become very humble? He's become a Vaishnava, he's feeling separation from Krishna, and then all of that's taking place. And then for the next, 6 or 8 years, from the time when he took initiation, then the whole Harinam Sankirtan movement and all those pastimes. So Gurudev says that because Navadvip is actually non-different than Vrindavan, non-different. And all the associates who are there in Braj Leela, they're all there in Gaur Leela. They descend to help the Lord. So the Gaur Leela pastimes in Navadvip Dham are non-different than Vrindavan. But the pastimes when Lord Chaitanya takes sannyas and then he leaves, then these are compared to the other two manifestations of Srimati Radharani, of Viyogini Radha and Samyogini Radha, where Viyogini Radha is now bereft of her Shyam. Krishna is gone to Mathura and she's staying in the forest, near to Nandagam, and never moving from there. But only when they go to Samanta Panchita, then another manifestation of Radharani goes there. Right? So that's Samyogini Radha. Viyogini, Viyog, separation, and then Samyog. So Mahaprabhu also, Gurudev explained that he has those same three manifestations, but his original form, just like the original form of Srimati Radharani, is Vrishabhanu Nandini, Radhika. And Krishna's original form is Brajendra Nandan, Shyama Sundar, in Vrindavan. And so Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his original form is Sachinandan, Gaur Hari. And that is the form that is in the spiritual world. And there's an Ashtakaliya Leela going on. Gurudev explained that. He said there's no Ashtakaliya Leela for Mahaprabhu's pastimes in the Sannyas Leela. But in the Nityadam, in that section, Svetadvip, this Ashtakaliya Leela is going on eternally. Just like Krishna's eightfold daily pastimes are going on in Vrindavan, similarly they're going on there. So I made the point about that his form has to be male, because that's who he is. He took a feminine form only in the Leela of the demigods and the demons, in order to trick them, in order to bewilder them and trick them. And he also showed that form to Lord Shiva one time, because Lord Shiva was thinking he can control his senses so perfectly. But when he saw that form in Mohini Murti, then he lost it. So the form has to be male. All of Krishna's incarnations are male, except for that one. I don't know, have you heard of any others? So, yes, Purusha and Prakriti. Okay, now, there's another verse which is quoted in chapter 4. I started reading chapter 4 again. I've gotten up to about verse 40 or so. It's just so delightful. I love that chapter. I wish I would have enough time to read the whole chapter. I think I will do that in these coming days and weeks. I'll read that chapter and also Rai Ramananda Samvad, because in those two places, the Radha Tattva is given so exquisitely. But the way that Srila Prabhupada is echoing the purports of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur so beautifully, how he's presenting them in his version of Chaitanya Charitamrita. Now, there's subtitles here for each verse, before the verse. So the next verse is quoted from Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela chapter 4, verse 82. There's about 220 verses or something like that in the 4th chapter. But it goes progressively more and more towards Radha Tattva. But the whole chapter is really Radha Tattva. So this is the famous verse, Govinda Nandini Radha, Govinda Mohini, Govinda Sarvasva, Sarvakanta Shiromani. But this is Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. He's actually writing this verse in Bengali, and it's also one of his, it's like his translation of a Sanskrit verse, which we'll come to. So the subtitle of this verse is, she is the be-all and the end-all of Govinda, and the crest jewel of all his consorts. Radha. So, Govinda Nandini Radha, Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga, Gandharvika Giridhari Radha, Govinda Jiva Ki Jai. Jai Radhe. So, here's the translation. Radha is the one who gives pleasure to Govinda. And she is also the enchantress of Govinda. So what is her name when she gives pleasure to Govinda? Govinda Nandini. Govinda Nandini means she who gives pleasure to Govinda. Next name is Govinda Mohini. She is the enchantress of Govinda. Then the next one is Govinda Sarvasva. Means that she is the be-all, Sarva, Sarvasva, the be-all and end-all of Govinda. And finally, Sarvakanta Shiromani. You know the meaning of Shiromani?
Like jewel?
Yes, crest jewel, Shiromani. So she is Sarvakanta Shiromani. She is the crest jewel of all of his consorts. So in that one verse, he has told so many things about Srimati Radhika and her position as completely enchanting Govinda. Now, this is from the same chapter, verse 95. Jagat Mohana Krishna Tahar Mohini. So what does that mean? That means Jagat Mohan Krishna. Krishna, who is the Mohan of the entire Jagat. Right? That very Sri Krishna who attracts the entire universe with his beauty, his qualities, his pastimes, his nature, his opulence, sweetness, and other aspects. So that Jagat Mohan Krishna is himself attracted and rendered helpless by the unparalleled and unsurpassed love of Vrishabhanu Nandini Srimati Radhika, who is the most supremely accomplished of all in the art of love and affection. So here the verse is Jagat Mohan Krishna Tahar Mohini. So Tahar means of him, and Mohini means the enchantress. So he's Jagat Mohan, but she is Tahar Mohini. She is the enchantress of he who enchants the entire universe. Atayeva Samaster Para Thakurani. Therefore, of all the goddesses, she is Para Thakurani. She is the supreme goddess, because by the unparalleled and unsurpassed love of Vrishabhanu Nandini Srimati Radhika, who is the most supremely accomplished of all in the art of love and affection, who is the embodiment of Mahabhav, and who is extremely dear to Sri Krishna. Indeed, she is the goddess of he who is the God of the entire creation. Therefore, she is all in all. So this is an expanded translation of that. This is actually in the Venugita. He's taken chapter 7 of the Venugita, Gurudev's very words when he's quoting this verse. So it's very, very expanded. The next section, Sri Radhika is the topmost worshipper who completely controls Krishna by her love. So now here comes that verse that I was talking about, the Sanskrit verse. The Sanskrit verse is taken from the Brihad Gautamiya Tantra, and then it's quoted in Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 4, verse 83. It's also quoted in the Brahma Samhita, page 49. So what is this verse? This is a verse we have to memorize. Devi Krishnamai Prokta Radhika Paradevata Sarva Lakshmi Mai Sarva Lakshmi Mai Sarva Kanti Sanmohini Para. So what we've heard so far is actually the commentary of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami leading up to this verse. So, here's the translation. We'll break it down with each word in this verse. Srimati Radhika is the supreme goddess. So what is supreme goddess? It means that she is Paradevata. Now this whole section from the 4th chapter, actually we should just read that. But I'm only taking it from the shloka book here. But as we read that section, all of these verses and everything, it all comes together nicely. So, Devi Krishnamai Prokta. Now, Prokta means she is called. She is called Devi, and she is called Krishnamai. She is called Radhika. She is called Paradevata. She is called Sarva Lakshmi Mai. She is called Sarvakanti. And she is called Sammohini Para. These are all different names of Radhika. So, Devi Krishnamai Prokta. Srimati Radhika is the supreme goddess. That means Paradevata. Paradevata. She is the exclusive abode of Krishna's playful pastimes, or she is the illustrious enactress of amorous lila. So that's the meaning of Devi. Each word in this verse is expanded by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. So Devi, which we think is a very quite general term, but what does Devi actually mean? It means that she is Paradevata. She's the supreme goddess. And she is the exclusive abode of Krishna's playful pastimes, or the illustrious enactress of amorous lila, Devi, and the shelter of all goddesses of fortune, Mahalakshmi. She is superlatively beautiful. Her whole being is nothing but Krishna, and she is incessantly absorbed in Krishna. She is the embodiment of all splendor, and she is the enchantress of Sri Krishna's heart. So now there's a key Bhagavatam shloka glorifying Srimati Radhika. And guess where that shloka is mentioned? In the Ras Lila chapter. This is the shloka which is spoken by the other gopis when they realize that there's one gopi who was taken by Krishna. Okay? So this famous verse actually has the name of Radha in it. Anaya radito nunam. So here, Anaya means by this one. Aradita means worshipped. So the name Radhika comes from this. Aradhanam. Aradhita. So what the gopis are saying is, O Sakhis, Sri Radhika is much more fortunate than all of us. She has surely performed the highest aradhana of Bhagavan Sri Hari. So, Anaya Radito Nunam Bhagavan Harir Ishvaraha. Yan no Vihaya Govinda Prito Yam Anayad Raha. So, O Saki, Sri Radhika is much more fortunate than all of us. She has surely performed the highest aradhana of Bhagavan Sri Hari, and thus she has received the name Radhika. That is why, being very much pleased with her, Govinda has left us in the Rasa Stali and went off with her to a solitary place. Very key verse. Anaya radito nunam. So now here's the famous verse which is quoted in the Upadeshamrita of Rupa Goswami in the purports. And this is coming from the Padma Purana. And this is stating in this verse that Srimati Radhika is the topmost beloved of Krishna. So here's the verse. Yata Radha Priya Vishnos Tasya Kundam Priyam Tata Sarva Gopishu Saivaika Vishnur Atyanta Ballabha. Alright, so here it says Yata Radha Priya Vishnos. Just as Radha is Priya to Vishnu, Krishna. Just as Radha is very dear to Krishna, Tasya Kundam Priyam Tata. Her Kundam is similarly as dear. Just as Srimati Radhika is most dear to Sri Krishna, her pond, Sri Radha Kunda, is equally dear to him. Then the next line says, Sarva Gopishu Saivaika. So, she alone, Sarva Gopishu, among all the gopis, she alone, Saivaika, Vishnur Atyanta Ballabha. Vishnur Atyanta Ballabha. Atyanta means most extremely dear. Atyanta Ballabha, extremely dear. Amongst all the gopis, she is Atyanta Ballabha, much more beloved than any. Yes. These are all praman. Now, the next verse is telling, and being told by Krishna, that this earth is glorious because of Vrindavan and the gopis. And the gopis are glorious because among them is my Radhika. Here's the verse. Trilokye prithvi dhanya yatra vrindavanam puri tatrapi gopika parta yatra radha bida mama. Now this is spoken by Sri Krishna to Arjuna in the Adi Purana. So he's saying, O Partha, in all the 3 planetary systems, this earth is especially fortunate. For on earth is the town of Vrindavan. And within Vrindavan, the gopis are especially glorious, because amongst them is my Srimati Radhika. Trilokye prithvi danya yatra vrindavanam puri tatrapi gopika parta yatra radha vidavana. Then he goes on. There's another verse from the Padma Purana. This other one was from the Adi Purana. Trilokye prithvi manya jambudvipo tatovaram tatrapi bharatam varsham tatrapi mathura puri. In the 3 worlds, the most fortunate place is the earthly planets. And the best of them is Jambudvip. In Jambudvip, the best place is Bharatvarsha. And in Bharatvarsha, the best place is Mathura Puri. Then, the same Padma Purana has the next verse that explaining how amongst all the exalted gopis in that Mathura Puri, the most illustrious is Srimati Radhika. So here's the verse. Tatra Vrindavanam Nama Tatra Gopi Kadambakam Tatra Radha Sakhi Vargas tatrapi radhika vara. The best place in Mathurapuri is called Vrindavan. In Vrindavan, there reside a multitude of milkmaids, amongst whom the 8 friends of Shri Radha are the most exalted. And still more illustrious is the Supreme Goddess, Shri Radha. Tatrapi Radhika Vara. Vara means supreme. Now Krishna tells Krishna tells to Arjuna that the gopis are everything to me. This is from Gopi Premamritam, some book. So here he says, Sahaya Gurava Shishya Bhujishya Bandhavastriya Satyam Vadami Te Parta Gopya Kim Me Bhavantina. So here Krishna is telling, O Partha, I speak to you the truth. The gopis, they are my helpers, my teachers, my disciples, servants, friends, and consorts. I do not know what they are not to me. So then, from Adi Lila, toward the end of the chapter, chapter 4, verse 217, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is telling, Radha Saha Krida Rasa Vridhir Karan Ar Sab Gopigan Rasopa Karan. That means Sri Krishna's pleasure pastimes with Sri Radha are the cause for expanding the relishable mellows of the rasa. So, first of all, Radha Saha Krida Rasa Vridhir Karan. She is the cause. His pleasure pastimes with Sri Radha are the cause for expanding the relishable mellows of rasa. And then, Arsab Gopigan Raso Pakarana. And all the other gopis, they assist that development. Then 4:124, Adi Lila. Radhikar Prem Guru, Ami Shishyanata. You know that one?
That was the Guru of love for Krishna.
And Shishyanata.
Yes. He's the student.
Her dancing pupil.
Oh.
Shishyanata. Nata means dancing, right? Sada amanana nritye nachai udbata. Her praying makes me dance various novel dances. Then Srimati Radhika is the epitome of transcendental rasa. What verse in the Brahma Samhita telling this? Ananda chinmaya rasa pratibhavitavis tavirya eva nija rupataya kalabhi goloka eva nivasati akilatma bhuto govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Do we know this verse? Let's say it. Ananda chinmaya rasa pratibhavitavis Tabirya eva nijarupataya kalabhi Goloka eva nivasati akilatma bhuto Govindamadi purusham tamam bhajami. Actually, this is the verse in our Brahma Samhita where the purport of Bhakti Vinod Thakur is very long. It's like 14 pages long in the Brahma Samhita for this verse. That's why this verse is so key, because here Srimati Radhika is being referred to. Now, what is she being referred to as? Here's the translation. Sri Govinda, who is all-pervading, and who exists within the hearts of all, He resides in his Goloka Dham along with Sri Radha, who is the embodiment of his pleasure potency, Ananda Chinmaya Rasa. She is the embodiment of his pleasure potency, and she is the counterpart of his own spiritual form. Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavitabis Tabirya Eva Nija Rupataya Kalabi. Nija Rupataya Kalabi means his very own form she is Kala. She is, how does it say that? She's expanding. She's the embodiment of his pleasure potency, and she is the counterpart of his own spiritual form. She is the epitome of transcendental rasa and is expert in the 64 arts. And that's what's in that purport. You want to know what the 64 arts are? They're mentioned in that purport by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. All 64. She is expert in the 64 arts. Kalabi. Kala means these arts, artistic. So they means Radha and Krishna. They are also accompanied by the Sakhis, who are expansions of Sri Radha's own transcendental body. And those Sakhis who are infused with blissful spiritual rasa. I worship that original personality, Sri Govinda. Now, there's a section in the 4th chapter of Adi Lila where Srimati Radhika's form is being described by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, how it is the essence of the essence of the essence, her form. So he says here, Ladinir Sar Prem. Ladinir Sar Prem. Prem Sar Bhav. So the word Sar means essence. Okay? So Ladinir Sar Prem. Prem is the essence of Ladini Shakti potency. Prem Sar Bhav. Bhav is the essence of Prem. Bhaver Parama Kashta Nam Mahabhav. So, the essence of the Ladini potency is Prem, love of God. The essence of Prem is Bhav. And the ultimate development of Bhav is Mahabhav. Then the next verse is telling Mahabhav Swarupa Sri Radha Thakurani. Sarva Guna Kani Krishna Kanta Shiromani. Sri Radha Thakurani is the embodiment of Mahabhav. Here it says Mahabhav Swarupa. Mahabhav Swarupa means she is the very embodiment of Mahabhav. And her name is Sri Radha Thakurani. Sarva Guna Kani. Sarva Guna Kani means, Kani means a mine, like when you do mining for gold and silver. So she is Sarva Guna Kani. She is a mine of all transcendental qualities. And Krishna Kanta Shiromani. Here we come for the Shiromani again. Means what? Krishna Kanta Shiromani.
It's a crest jewel of the beloved Krishna.
Yes. No. Kanta Shiromani means the crest jewel of all of Krishna's beloveds. Yes. It's like we have Keshava Kanta. Keshava Kanta Shiromani. Yes. She is the repository of all good qualities, and she is the crest jewel among all the lovely consorts of Lord Krishna. So, what is the meaning of Mahabhav? I'll tell you a little pastime. One time, Gurudev, he was in Philippines. He was in Philippines, and it was his second time coming. But there happened to be one devotee who was in another camp, what's his name? Siddha Swarup camp. And he happened to be the temple president of their temple on the island of Cebu. And Gurudev was just arriving to have his festival he was going to stay there for a whole month and do his writing retreat. And then at the end of that, we were going to come have a 1 week festival there, which we did. So, yeah. But when this devotee snuck away, his sneaking away became permanent. He's at Prabhuji's place. Krishna Karunya, yeah. And so he came there a little shyly, because you know why? The year before that, Gurudev was there. But all he did was he came and he had some fear that he would be seen, and he just, he brought something and placed it at Gurudev's feet, and then he left. And he didn't even stay for any program. But this second year, he had been researching on the internet and getting a lot of enthusiasm and conviction, right? So now he was ready.
But he didn't come before the festival while Gurudev was writing, only when the festival began at the end.
Just toward the beginning, just a day or two before. And he met Gurudev while Gurudev was chanting japa, walking back and forth on the beach, right in front of his little bungalow. And so then he came up. And at that time, he was now kind of, more bold. I remember Prem Prayojan was there before he took sannyas, and he was kind of like, giving him confidence, bringing him up to Gurudev. So he came and introduced him to Gurudev, right? So then what happened, he paid his obeisances while Gurudev was walking, and then Gurudev stopped. And then Gurudev, I think Prem Prayojan told Gurudev, this is a devotee who has come from this other group of devotees. And his name is Mahabhav Das. And then Gurudev, he looked at him and he said, do you know the meaning of Mahabhav? What's that wind?
Sounds like rain. I was wondering, it looks like rain clouds.
Could be. Yeah.
Wonderful.
So he said, do you know the meaning of Mahabhav? Because he got this name Mahabhav Das. It was his initiated name. Anyway, he didn't know the meaning. And Gurudev didn't really try to explain it to him. But he was just remarking like that. So this verse from Adi Leela chapter 4 verse 69 is telling that Srimati Radhika is the embodiment of Mahabhav. Oh, sorry, I just read that. The next one is the meaning of Mahabhav. This verse is from Ujjvala Nila Mani. Okay? Sthai Bhav Prakarana. Ujjvala Nila Mani. It's also mentioned in Madhya Leela chapter 8 in the Rairamananda Samvad. It's also mentioned in Jaiva Dharma. So this verse is the definition verse of Mahabhav. Here it is. Radhaya bhavatascha chitta jatuni svedair vilapya kramad yunjan adri nikunja kunjarapate nirdhuta veda brahman. I'll read that again. Radhaya bhavatascha chitta jatuni svedair vilapya kramad yunjan adri nikunja kunjarapate nirdhuta veda brahman. So here's the translation. Sri Radha Krishna continuously enjoyed their loving play in the Nikunjas. Vrindadevi, having realized the excellence of their anurag, says to Krishna, O king of mad elephants, who sports in the groves on Govardhan Hill, there is an accomplished artist of the name Shringar Ras, in parentheses, Kamadev, and upon the fire generated from the heat of your two bhavs, he has slowly melted your shellac-like hearts and made them one. Then, mixing that with profuse quantities of the kumkum of your ever-fresh rag, he is painting an astonishing picture upon the inner walls of the grand temple of the universe. Wow. So this should be our meditation. Sri Radhastami is coming up. You'll all be here. I'll be up there, feeling separation from Radha Govinda. But at any rate, we have so much nectar to relish. So Gaur Prema Anandi Hari Hari Bol.
Those were verses selected from the 4th chapter of Adi Leela?
A lot of them that I read tonight. Yeah. See, if you read that's the chapter that everyone has to read when it's nearing to Radhastami, because that's the most perfect presentation of Radha Tattva.
The
whole
last
chapter.
Last you read is from Ramananda Roy Sambad, isn't it?
No, it's from Ujjvala Nilamani, and it's being quoted. Ujjvala Nilamani is...
Prabhupada writes that in Teachings of Lord Chaitanya.
Okay, because it's being quoted.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know, throughout the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there are quotations from the different books of Rupa Goswami. So this is from his Ujjvala Nilamani, the definition of Mahabhav. Okay, Gaur Premanandi, Vancha Kalptarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaja, Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha.